Hi, I'm Amanda Morgan, and this is Not Just Cute, the podcast, where we discuss all kinds of topics to help bridge the gap that exists between what we know and what we do in early childhood education. We're starting conversations with academics, authors, decision makers, educators, and parents so that together we can improve the quality of early childhood education while at the same time protecting and respecting the childhood experience. Have you ever had someone explain something to you, something that you've had people explain to you before, and suddenly things that you couldn't piece together previously just click? That's how I felt as I listened to Heather Jackson of the Sunflower School while she talked about the inspiration she draws from the Reggio Emilia philosophy. In this episode, she shares her thoughts on verbs as thematic units, slowing down to capture the true intentions of the children we work with, and the beauty and importance in the magical thinking of childhood. Before we jump in, a quick heads up that the Why We Play letters will be on sale through the end of 2020. These letters will help you jumpstart important conversations in your learning community about the importance and power of play in your early childhood setting. People don't value what they don't understand. Help parents understand the value of play by sharing the Why We Play letters. Learn more and grab a free sample letter at notjustcute.com/whyweplay. I'm so excited to have met Heather Jackson and to have learned so much from her. I'm equally excited for you to do the same. Whether you aspire to teach specifically from the Reggio philosophy or not, I firmly believe that there are pieces and parts from virtually every perspective that we can weave into each of our own patchwork philosophies and help us to better serve the little ones we love and teach. You can find show notes for this episode at notjustcute.com/podcast/episode 38. If you've been wondering how you could do an even better job of bringing a child-centered approach to your curriculum, or if you're looking to bring more of the magic of childhood into your teaching practices, Heather has some fantastic food for thought. Let's jump in. Heather, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited for what you have to share with everybody.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm excited too. I really enjoy your podcast. I started listening about May, and I just loved some of your topics and guests. And I even, when I would come home after my big walks, I would even listen again so I could take notes. So thank you so much. Thank you.
That means a lot to me. Thank you for sharing that. One of my favorite things to do as I start out each interview is to ask people about their own professional journey, about not just what they do, but what took you to that point to do the things that you do. So I'd love to hear about your own path.
Sure. So I'm the executive director of the Sunflower School here in Orangeville, Ontario, Canada, and we are a Reggio-inspired school. We started about 11 years ago, but I've been an early childhood educator for 40 years, and early childhood is my heart and soul, and it is my passion. So probably back in 1999, I attended a Reggio-inspired presentation by one of our local colleges, and they had been on the study tour in Reggio Emilia. And they brought back slides called the open window slides. And that presentation was probably about 2 hours. I sat there in total awe for 2 hours, wondering what magical children are these in Reggio Emilia. And I kept thinking, our children don't say things like that. Our children don't do things like that. And when I went back to work the next day, I was like, why don't our children say things like that? Why don't our children do work the way they do in Reggio? So that was my journey in 1999. I have been fortunate over the last few years to have traveled to Reggio Emilia on their study tours, which are PD of a lifetime for anybody in education. And they were magical and amazing. And the number of people that you meet who are all on the same journey is so amazing. And I've also been down to the Boulder Journey School in Colorado. I've been out to the Opal School in Portland. And I also attended one of the St. Louis Reggio Collaborative study weeks as well. And I also attend the NAREA, so that's NAREA conferences, and they're all over the U.S. They were in Toronto once. And I went to New York City to see the Blues School and the beginning nursery school, which had an amazing loose parts floor. And they call it the materials room. And we've connected professionally just recently, and amazing. So, and then 11 years ago, my daughter graduated with her early childhood diploma. And my youngest daughter was working in a graphic design studio doing admin work. At that point, I was not really happy in my career. I was like on the second floor, filling out applications for grant funding, attending board meetings, worrying about the financials, and I'd really lost my way. And I really missed being with the children directly and working with teachers. And that's my lead role right now as the executive director. I am curriculum lead for us. And so we started our own school, the Sunflower School, 11 years ago. And so my sister recently joined us. So we are a 4-women management team, and we are strong and mighty. And I love going to work every day. So that's a bit about my journey.
That is such a fascinating and inspiring story. I just love how you dove into what really made you come alive, and that you were so I just think it's daring greatly, right? I talk with my friends a lot about this whole concept of finding what you love and taking that leap. And I just love what you've built from that, from following your passion. And
thank you.
It's so beautiful. So we've talked before, and I mentioned that I'm kind of a patchwork philosophy type of person. And so I'm familiar a little bit with Reggio Emilia, but I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are not or who are not familiar, or who are like me and we're familiar, but we don't feel like we really know everything, but are still so interested about the Reggio Emilia philosophy. Do you mind explaining a little bit about that?
Sure. And again, it's not Reggio inspired practice is not a model. In Reggio, they tell you, please don't just take what we're doing and copy it. Bring home all of our ideas, think about the theory, read the theory, but create your own program. And part of that is the image of the child being strong and capable and competent. And then the biggest part is what we're going to talk about today, and that is, how do you start projects? How do you work in the project way? And how do you not go back to the theme approach that we all started with. I started with that. I was 52 weeks of the year planned. I knew exactly what I was doing. And then when I started researching Reggio, I was like, this is amazing. And this is what project work is all about. So teachers are capable and competent. And so we research together with the children, and we are observing the children's play. We are looking at their intentions. And I just want to say a couple of things about that. I think in North America, we've attached on to this interests of children. And sometimes it's not worthy work. I think that's in the U.S. You guys have that phrase, but it's not full body, interesting project work. Themes to me are like firefighters, the ladybug, colors, and so I think in Reggio Emilia, they think children are so much more capable than those simple themes. And so that's sort of and I always get asked, how do you start a project? How does a project last for 6 months? How do you dig in deep with the children? And it's the children's intentions. And we'll talk a little bit about that with play schemas and verbs as your project. But that's how I've come to know it. So I think with Reggio, you sort of take bits and pieces like you were talking about. You read a lot. You talk to colleagues a lot. You attend events, and then you come up with your own practice. And that's what I think we've done at the Sunflower School. Because again, all my educators have different perspectives too. So they're all coming from different places and with different ideas. And we want to respect that as an early childhood education facility for children.
And so you're really using that philosophy, the Reggio philosophy, to weave together that, I guess, like I always call it, a patchwork. So you're taking, the way I hear you saying it's not that you use that philosophy at the exclusion of everything else, but that's the thread that binds all those other experiences and perspectives together. And it's such a beautiful perspective of the child and really centering children and their interests. And like you said, that they're so capable and that we are underestimating a lot of times.
Yes, and I think that underestimation, that's an excellent word, is what holds people back, right? And what holds educators, especially early childhood educators, in jumping in deeply in the curriculum. I know we have an infant room in one of our schools, and those educators are doing beautiful things with small materials. And they know that children are capable and competent, especially if it's something that is delicate and you have so much pride in that material that you found and brought for them. They will show you how they can use it in a really capable way. Obviously, teachers are with them, but still, they are small materials, and everyone's always afraid that children are going to put something in their mouth and choke, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we should think differently about that and really give children that power and confidence in their work with us.
That's so interesting, and it brought to me an experience I had as a mother. One of my children, he was just a toddler at the time, and he got into something he was playing with. I think they were like little sewing pins or something.
Oh, yes.
and so I was just kind of standing back watching him play with it, and somebody else came on the scene and said, basically, oh my goodness, you're not watching him. Yeah. You're not paying attention. And I just felt like saying, I am paying attention. That's why he still gets to play with them. I'm watching very closely to see what he does. And it's just a shift in that mindset of, I can trust you to take these calculated risks, and I'm going to watch very closely because I know what the risks are. But to have a little extra trust. And I really feel like as I listen to you talk about this approach, there's really a sense for me of slowing down so that you can really get deeper to things. There's to really observe and take in a child's intentions and to watch and see what they're interested in, and to take the time to let them think about it and to build those curiosities. That takes time, and it requires us to slow down a little bit, but it's one of those like slow down to get ahead kind of concepts, right? That you can.
Yes. And that's, that's what I always talk about with my educators, that we have to watch. We have to watch and observe and pay attention and slow down, because I think so many times as early childhood educators, we're trying to do the emergent curriculum and we see something happening and we're like, yep, that's what it is. That's our project. Here we go when we jump in. But I think we need to slow down and give it a second look, right? I have a story of a recycle truck, and at our center, we have these massive recycle and garbage trucks that appear picking up the garbage weekly. And our toddlers love this. They can hear these trucks coming down the street and they run to the fence. We know the gentleman doing the garbage. His name is Bill. We've known him for all these years. They love the big truck. And so one of our educators, she was just new to us, and she had been a student, and she was, just so eager to do something like this long-term project with great experiences and invitations. And so she said to me, I'm going to do a project on recycle trucks. And it was just around the time that I had started thinking about projects as verbs instead of nouns. And when she said that, I said, okay, let's watch. So we watched, and they were so excited about this truck. And then after, they were running up and down the playground like really fast, and they were lifting things up and crashing things down. And when you think about a garbage or a recycle truck, that's what they do. They're lifting things, they're crashing things down. And so she said that her project would be about the recycle truck. And so I said, okay, let's watch, because there was another day that week that the truck was coming. I said, let's watch and really record what's happening. And so when we recorded it, as in in watching the children, writing down what they were saying, their movements, all of that. All of a sudden it became about moving. And it was that powerful movement of the recycle truck. So now all of a sudden your little project about a recycle truck, which is very thematic and looks like, you cut out a shape of a recycle truck, then we paint it or we glue stuff on it, and really that's your project. Whereas if it's a project about movement and really powerful movement, which is what the truck was, then it becomes a bigger. So what else moves really powerfully, right? And as toddlers, these were toddlers. And so then how do their bodies move? A lot of them have just started walking. Now they're learning how to run. They're learning how to jump. Now all of a sudden they're into powerful movement. And so, planes fly, and we always see the fire trucks, and we see all other kinds of cars around our playground. So all of a sudden it becomes a project on moving, and it lasted 6 months, and it just kept going because there was so many ways. So now you can see how just that truck, and then looking at it from a different perspective, and that is moving. And for the toddlers and that teacher, it was a really powerful sort of first start.
That's such a fantastic example. And part of what I love about that is I think it's easy for us to oversimplify or try to make this flowchart process of how do you come up with a theme. And, if your children are interested in this, then that there's, we want to kind of have this one right answer, this one right process. And for your children, it was the movement that when you watched more closely, what was it that they were so interested in? And for another group that, from the superficial perspective, maybe we're interested in the exact same thing, looking more closely may have led them to a different realization.
It could have been like the sounds of the powerful movement, right? It could have been those, when you hear that truck and the big tires, how do big tires sound as opposed to little tires? Oh, yes, definitely. I feel like it could have gone another way.
Yeah, that it's just,
so that's,
it's those multiple layers of asking questions, which applies to so many things, that when you want to dig deeper, you don't just say, what are they interested in? But then the next layer is why and how, and going a little deeper to see that. I love it. And you started talking a little bit about your concept that really was an aha to me. It really got my attention when I heard you explaining this and made some things click for me that I didn't understand before. When you talk about taking themes, which I think most early childhood teachers are familiar and have used, thematic units, which work great. And you challenge people to take those themes and find the verb. And I love that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the concept of using verbs for your thematic units?
Thank you. I can't take credit. I attended probably 5-6 years ago now a PD event. It was a networking group of kindergarten teachers, early childhood educators, and it was actually a really close friend of mine at the Acorn School. And she had this morning where you could go and talk to other people. And so always the question comes up, how do we start projects? How do we make them look like the Reggio inspired practice? How do we get them to be big, beautiful documentation? And so we were talking, and there was lots of discussion about, what is a theme? And we came to the conclusion that they were nouns. Like firefighters and ladybugs. I keep saying that, but that's kind of what comes to my head all the time. And so one of the kindergarten teachers, she said, what if it's the verb? For me, like you, I went, oh my gosh, it is, right? It is the verb. And so after that moment, I thought of nothing else on my drive home. And then I started to really research it and looking at a definition. So a noun is very linear. It's a person, place, or thing. It is really definite. Whereas a verb is a full body action, constructing, engaging. And that's how our children play. They play in full body action. So our projects need to be full body in action with preschoolers and toddlers. And you think of infants trying to, crawl and walk. I mean, that is big movement that is happening for them. So I think that was my aha moment. And the next one was, so I took that small idea and I've run with that. And I've done a lot of research. And the other thing I found out was that some of the work we do is that we take that noun. So people think, oh, I'm going to do a project on the moon. I have a moon story I'll tell you in a second. And especially as the days are getting shorter and, children, we're going to start to see the moon soon at 4:00 in the afternoon when it's dark. And so then is it the moon? Is it in fact the moon that's fascinating them? So we'll take a word like moon or colors and we will try to convert it to the verb. What is it actually that the children are fascinated with? So let me tell you my moon story. So this story I love, and whenever I do a presentation, I'm always telling this story because it really touches my heart and is part of magical thinking. And magical thinking for me is early childhood education. So this was probably about the same time as the verbs became important in my work. And this little guy, we were waiting, it was September, and we were waiting for the bus for him to go off to kindergarten. And he looked up at the sky and he said, Heather, the moon is out in the sky. And it was like 8:30 in the morning. And I looked up and I was like, oh my God, I had never noticed in all my years of living on this planet that the moon is out in the sky some days. And so he kept looking at it and he was like, why is the moon out? So I could have simply said, let's look on Google, let's find out. And that would have been the end of it. And I said, what do you think? I said to him, what do you think?
I love that question.
And he looked up at the moon and he didn't have an answer. And the bus came and he went off. Next, so I looked it up on Google because I was like, why is the moon out? Did I miss a phenomena on the news that's telling me the moon is out or something? So I looked it up, and it's actually when it's a full moon, the earth and the moon are very close together. So during the day, sometimes if the sky is bright, you will see the moon. And I had no idea. And now I see it all the time. I notice it all the time. Anyway, so then Tuesday comes, same thing. He's like, Heather, the moon's still in the sky. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh, I see the moon. And I just am sort of answering back what he's saying to me. And then finally he said, why is the moon in the sky again? And I said, what do you think? So this went on for 5 days till Friday comes. Friday, again, Heather, the moon's in the sky. I said to him, well, what do you think? Why is the moon in the sky? That's so interesting. So he said to me, the moon forgot to go to bed. Oh. I took that. So I could have taken that and done this big project on the moon. This is what this child was interested. But this child was magical. He was giving me the magical thinking answer. And I have a whole theory about the magical thinking answer because we know all of us know those children that come up with these amazing little sentences or stories. So anyways, it became a storytelling project about the moon, and the moon was the vehicle to get to storytelling, which is your verb. Because of the way he said it, the moon forgot to go to bed. It was a story. It lent itself to being a story. And the other children by Friday, they were all like just wanting to know why the moon forgot to go to bed and why the moon was still in the sky. And so magical thinking, I believe, is children are telling you what they're thinking. And lots of teachers will say, oh, that's really cute, or that's a silly answer. But if you take those magical thinking answers that they have and you say to a child, and I'll say this all the time, I would never have thought of that. The power that you are giving that child, that you are a teacher and you're supposed to know it all, is amazing. And they will share. Yeah, they will share their magical thinking with you. I had a little guy, a long time ago, like probably 11 years ago. I asked them where their imagination came from, and all the kids were like their brain or your thinking. He said it came from your heart. That's a magical thinking answer. That's what I want to hear from preschoolers. They can learn all the scientific stuff, why the moon's still in the sky during the day in grade 3 science. But as preschoolers, I think we have to give them their right to share their magical thinking. And that's where in Reggio, they talk about children's theories. That's the magical thinking piece of that practice. And I love the magical thinking. I think it can go, your projects will be huge once you start to think of children as magical thinkers.
Well, and those two things combined, the concept of the verbs for your themes and the magical thinking, to me, as you were talking, it kept reminding me of that it's tempting for us to get so fixated on the what are all the concepts, what do they need to know, and some of these are very important, but that we're missing, like with the verbs, we're missing the question about, but what do they do? Not just what do they know, what do they do?
Yes.
And what do they feel in the magical thinking? And it's really, I think, just a larger, it's really a whole child perspective to really encompass all that makes a child, and as you said, makes a child so special and unique in those early years. If we take a whole child approach, we embrace all of that rather than just getting fixated on the what are the objects, what are the things.
Yes.
So
and
beautiful.
I think you're encouraging children to be that creative thinker, that critical thinker. And because you are giving them confidence to say what they really want to tell you, and that is that magical answer. And I think a lot of educators shut children down before they can get there. And then children will never share it with you again. Because I've had educators say to me, oh, our children never say anything like that as I tell my stories, right? Mm-hmm. And I always have to caution them. I said, do you allow them to tell their stories to you? And I am going to say 9 times out of 10, they're so busy and I get it. I've worked in early childhood a long time. There's, you have your schedule of your day. You have to flow through your day. And there's lots of times where we were talking about the slowing down. We don't slow down. We go from, morning snack right to morning meeting to project work time, lunch, and we're just flowing through our day without stopping and really hearing those magical thinking answers that our children are giving us. I have another magical thinking. Can I share that with you?
Yeah. Can I reemphasize something that you said, though? I'm sitting here making notes, and you said it, but I want to make sure that everybody heard it. You were emphasizing that magical thinking really is what leads to critical thinking. That sometimes we may have some people who say, oh, yeah, that is cute, that's sweet, we should do it because it's cute and sweet. But not only because it's cute and sweet, that's great, but it's not just cute, right? That it's that magical thinking and that validation of magical thinking that will lead them to think critically and to think creatively and to think innovatively. And so it isn't just, because they're young and here and now it's precious, it's cute, but it is what really builds those long-term skills that will matter so much and be so powerful for them as they continue, that it sets that foundation for them that is so important.
And I think it gives them confidence that what they thought mattered to my teacher, right? When I tell them, I would never have thought of that. That for children, that confidence building and that power that you are giving a preschooler is amazing. And I always think, there's lots of time. This is magical thinking. Piaget talked about magical thinking. It happens till the age of 5. And then it's like, I believe in Santa. I believe in all of those pieces. And it isn't until, they hit 5 and then they start to see the real world. And I always say, let's give them the magical while they're preschoolers. Let's stop with the worksheets. And that means nothing to a 3-year-old that is that creative, beautiful mind. And again, it's the confidence that you're giving that child. So let me tell you my other story that I love. And it was, again, a new teacher and a teacher with a little bit more experience. It was a preschool, all 3-year-olds. And they were looking in the fall here in Orangeville, Ontario. We have beautiful colors of our leaves. Our leaves turn absolutely magnificent. And reds and just beautiful. And we have a sugar maple in that one playground and it bright red, like huge, massive leaves, and they're bright red. So our question or their question for the morning meeting was, how do leaves turn red? How are our leaves on our tree turning red? And so children had lots of answers: because it rains, because it's cold. Like there was all kinds of answers. This one little magical soul said that the ladybug, which we have lots of ladybugs, lands on the leaves and turns the leaves red with her body.
How beautiful.
Oh my gosh. When the educator told me, one of the teachers said to her, you have to tell Heather that story. She is going to love that story. So she told me the story and I said, okay, so what are you doing next? Because that is where project work happens. We embrace that child or that statement or a group of statements that are magical. And so then it was about storytelling. So again, your verb about how the ladybug turned the leaves red. And that child told a really magical story, a big story about how the ladybug turned the leaves red. And it became, they did all kinds of stuff with red. They were doing shades of red. They were trying to turn red into blue. They were trying to and it was just all that magical experimenting, and it just was beautiful. Because what could have happened was that teacher could have said, well, this project is about a leaf and a ladybug, and that would have been, the end of that magical thinking, which was that the ladybug turned the leaf red. And I was really excited to watch as the project developed. So that's about magical thinking. That's what I want them to grasp onto as educators, is that magical piece.
I love that. And I love that, again, it feels like it's doing something so much bigger by getting so much simpler, really.
Yes.
It's just
that child, like the confidence that child had, all of a sudden now she felt, and the teacher said, you could just see the look on her face that
Sure.
I can tell you my, magical thinking and you embrace it. And I think that is more powerful than anything we can do for children.
So amazing. Well, I have one other question that I wanted to ask you about,
Yes.
particularly in the context that we have right now. This year, it's been really, really challenging for people who are running schools and childcare settings like yourself. And
Yes.
We've talked before, and I was just so impressed by conversations with you and with other directors of some of those silver linings that are coming out of it. It does not take away any of those challenges. We want to validate that is very real, very challenging. Yes. But I've been so uplifted to hear so many people talk about, and yet, the thing that comes after all those challenges and things that they're realizing. So I was wondering if you could share some of the silver linings that you've found, maybe some of the realizations that you've had or the adaptations that you've made because of these necessary changes.
So one of the things that we talk about is how well our children have adjusted. So they were gone for 5 months. We opened August 17th, and we were all anticipating, bracing ourselves for the crying, the transition back into school, and the sad moments that the children were going to have. In fact, and even new children, so we are not able to allow our parents into the building. Parents have to drop off their children at the front door. Our assistant director picks them up in the morning and takes them down to their classroom in their cubbies, helps them get undressed and into the classroom. At night, I bring their children to them. So parents are not allowed. So we anticipated that children were not going to be happy. But in fact, it's been the absolute opposite. Our children are very happy. And we were just saying, now that we're into snowsuits and boots, our children, especially our younger ones, are putting boots on by themselves.
That's amazing.
They're able to put on their coats. They're doing the flip. Out is like going out used to be kind of at pickup time was like children were crying, children were upset because they were tired and it was a long day. Now it's like they're excited to see mommy. They put on coats and put on boots and out the door we go. And it's been really amazing. And we are delightfully surprised by this, that children are capable and competent and they rise to the occasion. And we are happy about that. The other thing that I am very happy about is at night, because I am taking their children out to them, they get to have a one-on-one conversation with me. Whereas in the other like before COVID, they were busy. They wanted to run in, run out. There was no time for conversations. I could have been busy with another parent. Now they get this one-on-one attention with the director of the school, and our like daily, parents, complaining about something or not happy have ended. Totally ended. And that has been a really nice change to our day, and it's been very positive. And also, so our other challenge was, how do we, parents were coming into the school, they could see our work, our documentation. We didn't want to put children's pictures on the wall, on the windows, and, for the rest of the community to see. So we have QR codes. We started doing some work on QR codes. So QR codes you've probably seen them in restaurants, outside of stores. You take a picture of it with your smartphone and it comes up, and what is coming up is a documentation piece. And so we've been using with great success QR codes, and I am really excited about that, because for parents now they get to actually see the documentation that's happening in our classrooms. Whereas before, when they were picking up, I'm sure they weren't noticing. They're busy. They've had a long day. And they just want to go. Whereas now they're waiting for their children. They can click on this QR code. So that's been a very positive, and parents are commenting on how nice it is to be able to do that and actually look at it.
That's such a great example. And it just makes the wheels in my brain start spinning
Yes.
about all the ways that you can use some of those things. And I do hope that, things get much, much closer
Yes.
to normal. And at the same time, I do hope that we take some of these things that we have learned and observed and see some of those things that could be adapted and applied, and maybe have some positive disruption that happens because of this. That's really great. Well, Heather,
Yes.
I really appreciate you talking today. I just love the inspiration that you bring, and I think we probably have a few more conversations we're going to have in the future, because I'm just furiously writing notes as you talk.
Oh, no. So I want to talk about play schemas next time.
Yeah.
I think play schemas are a really big piece of the verbs, and that could be a really interesting conversation in itself.
Definitely. We'll put that one on the calendar for next. We'll leave people just hanging on,
Yes.
just a cliffhanger right there. They've got to come back and catch your next one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks again for listening to Not Just Cute, the podcast. You can find show notes at notjustcute.com/podcast/episode 38. There you'll find links to the Sunflower School and their Instagram account, along with other interesting tidbits addressed in this episode. Show notes will also share a link to the Why We Play letters, so you can check those out and download the free sample letter. I'm Amanda Morgan. You can read more on my blog and sign up for the Not Just Cute newsletter at notjustcute.com, and follow me on Facebook. That's facebook.com/notjustcute. I'm also freshly and somewhat awkwardly on Instagram, so follow me there at Amanda_notjustcute. Thanks for listening today, and as always, thank you for standing up for children and for childhood.